Sister threw a shower just to reveal her baby's dad was my deceased fiancé. 6 months ago, I lost my fiancé in a car accident. He was my everything. The man I'd planned to marry, build a home with, and grow old beside. The grief has been overwhelming, like trying to navigate through a thick fog that never lifts. Some days I can function, go to work at the library where I catalog historical documents and pretend everything's normal. Other days I can barely get out of bed. Through all of this, I thought my family had my back. Especially my sister. She was there the night of the accident, holding me while I sobbed in the hospital waiting room. She helped organize the funeral when I couldn't think straight. She brought me groceries when I couldn't face going to the store. I was so grateful to have her support. Or at least, that's what I thought. Last weekend was my sister's baby shower. I didn't even know she was pregnant until about 3 months ago when she announced it to the family. She'd been keeping it quiet, which seemed odd, but she explained she wanted to be sure everything was healthy before sharing the news. I was happy for her. Really, I was. Having something positive to focus on felt like a small ray of light breaking through my grief. When she asked me to help plan her baby shower, I jumped at the chance. It felt good to channel my energy into something joyful. I threw myself into it, helped with decorations, ordered a beautiful cake, even handwrote all the invitations. My sister insisted on handling the guest list, which was fine by me. The day of the shower arrived. Everything looked perfect. Balloons in soft yellow and green. She was keeping the gender a surprise. Delicate finger foods arranged on my mom's best-serving platters, and gifts piled high on a table in the corner of my parents' living room. Friends and family filled the house, chatting and laughing. For the first time in months, I felt something close to normal. Then came time for my sister to open her gifts. She sat in the decorated chair of honor, smiling as she unwrapped onesies, tiny socks, and a mountain of diapers. After the last present, she cleared her throat and said she had an announcement. "Before I thank everyone for coming," she said, standing up with one hand resting on her clearly visible baby bump, "I want to share something special about this baby's father." I assumed she was going to acknowledge her boyfriend, who hadn't been able to make it to the shower. They'd been dating casually for a while, though I'd never seen them as particularly serious. "As some of you know," she continued, "we lost someone very special to our family earlier this year." A cold feeling washed over me. Surely she wasn't going to. "This baby," she said, looking directly at me with what I now recognize was a triumphant gleam in her eyes, "is a gift that will keep part of him alive. My baby's father is none other than my sister's late fiancé." The room went completely silent. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My mother gasped. Someone dropped a plate. Every eye in the room turned to me. "We didn't mean for it to happen," my sister continued, her voice dripping with fake emotion. "It was just once, a mistake, but now I see it as fate's way of keeping a piece of him with us." I couldn't breathe. My fiancé and my sister? The room started spinning. Someone touched my arm. My cousin, I think. But I jerked away and stumbled out the front door. I made it to my car before the tears came, great heaving sobs that felt like they were tearing me apart. My phone started buzzing immediately. Text messages from family members. "Are you okay? Did you know? I'm so sorry." I ignored them all and drove home in a daze, barely seeing the road through my tears. When I got home, I collapsed on my couch and let the full weight of the betrayal crash over me. My fiancé and my sister. My sister and my fiancé. How? When? Why? The questions swirled in my mind, making me dizzy with grief and rage. Later that night, my parents showed up at my door. I almost didn't answer, but eventually let them in. "Did you know about this?" I asked, my voice hoarse from crying. My mom shook her head, tears in her eyes. "No, honey, we had no idea." My dad looked uncomfortable. "Your sister said it was just one time, a mistake they both regretted immediately." "And you believe that?" I asked. They exchanged a glance that told me everything. They wanted to believe it. It would be easier that way. "Look," my dad said, sighing heavily, "what's done is done. Your sister is going to have a baby, your fiancé's baby. That makes it family. We need to find a way to move forward." I stared at him in disbelief. "Move forward?" She announced this at her baby shower. She could have told me privately, given me time to process it. Instead, she humiliated me in front of everyone we know. "She made a mistake," my mom said softly. "But that baby is innocent in all this. It's your fiancé's child." "If it even is his," I muttered. My dad's face hardened. Don't start with that. Your sister wouldn't lie about something like this, wouldn't she? I wasn't so sure anymore. After they left, I sat in my quiet house, trying to remember any signs, any clues I might have missed. Had my fiancé been acting strange before he died? Had my sister? Nothing obvious came to mind, but then again, I'd been so busy with work and wedding planning in those final months. The next day, my sister called. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was a masterclass in manipulation. "I know you're upset," she said, her voice wobbling. "I never meant to hurt you. It just happened, and now this baby is the only part of him left. Don't you want to be part of your niece or nephew's life? We can get through this together as a family." I deleted the message. Over the next few days, the shock began to wear off, replaced by a cold, clear anger. My sister had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and now she was using her pregnancy to manipulate everyone into forgiving her. Well, I wasn't going to make it that easy. I started thinking more critically about her story. One time? A mistake? It didn't add up. My fiancé and I had been together for 4 years. He wasn't the type to cheat, especially not with my sister. And if it had truly been a one-time mistake, why would she announce it so publicly, in a way designed to cause maximum pain and humiliation? No, there was more to this story, and I was going to find out what it was. I decided to talk to his best friend, who had been like a brother to him for years. We met for coffee at a small cafe downtown, away from prying eyes and gossiping mouths. "I need to ask you something," I said after we'd sat down with our drinks. "And I need you to be completely honest with me." He nodded, looking concerned. "Of course. What's going on?" I told him about my sister's announcement. His face went from shock to disgust to fury in the span of seconds. "That's bull," he said flatly. "Absolute bull." "You're sure?" I asked, a tiny flicker of hope kindling in my chest. "Look," he said, leaning forward. "I knew him better than almost anyone. He adored you. He talked about you constantly. There's no way he would have cheated on you, especially not with your sister." "But how can I prove that?" I asked. "It's her word against, well, no one's, since he's gone." He thought for a moment. "I don't know if this helps, but he really didn't like your sister. He told me once she gave him the creeps, the way she was always watching you guys and making weird comments. That was news to me. My fiancé had always been polite to my sister, but thinking back, he had seemed uncomfortable around her sometimes. I'd attributed it to his general shyness, but was there more to it?" "Did he ever mention anything specific?" I asked. "Not really," he said, frowning in concentration. "Just that she seemed jealous of you. He worried she might try to cause problems before the wedding." Jealous. That word struck a chord. My sister had always been competitive with me, though I'd tried to ignore it over the years. Could this whole thing be the ultimate act of jealousy? I left the coffee shop with a new determination. I was going to get to the bottom of this, not just for my own peace of mind, but to protect my fiancé's memory and legacy from my sister's lies. That night, I made a list of people to talk to. Friends who had seen my fiancé and sister interact, colleagues who might have noticed anything suspicious. I also reluctantly decided I needed to check his old phone and email, something I hadn't been able to face since the accident. His parents had given me his personal effects from the hospital, including his phone. I charged it up with shaking hands and entered his passcode. Nothing seemed unusual at first glance. No suspicious text messages, no strange calls. I checked his email next, again finding nothing out of the ordinary. I was about to give up when I remembered his cloud storage account. We had shared an account where we kept photos and documents for wedding planning. I hadn't looked at it since his death, the thought of seeing our happy plans too painful to bear. When I logged in, I noticed a folder I didn't recognize, simply labeled with my sister's initial. My heart pounding, I clicked on it. Inside were screenshots of text messages, dozens of them. They were all from my sister to my fiancé, spanning several months before his death. As I scrolled through them, a sickening pattern emerged. "I can't stop thinking about you. Why did you have to choose her? We would be so good together. Don't you feel the connection between us?" And my fiancé's responses, increasingly firm. "This needs to stop. I love your sister, and I'm going to marry her. Please respect our relationship. If you don't stop, I'll have to tell her about this." The last message from him, sent just days before the accident. I'm showing these messages to your sister tomorrow. This has gone too far. He never got the chance. I sat back, my mind reeling. This wasn't a consensual affair. This was my sister harassing and stalking my fiancé. And now she was using his death to spin a narrative that painted her as a tragic figure carrying his child. A child that, given the timing and these messages, almost certainly wasn't his. I downloaded all the evidence, then went a step further. I searched for any records of them being together on the dates she would have conceived, cross-referencing with my own calendar and social media posts. During the window when conception would have occurred, my fiancé had been on a business trip. There were photos of him at a conference 3 states away, posting daily updates. It was becoming clear. My sister was lying. But why take such an enormous risk? What did she hope to gain? The answer came to me as I was falling into an exhausted sleep. Money. My fiancé had been successful in his career, with a substantial life insurance policy and savings. As his fiancé, I was his beneficiary, but if he had a child, that might change things. The next morning, I called his parents. They had been like second parents to me, and we'd remained close after his death. I couldn't put this off any longer. They needed to know what was happening. There's something I need to tell you, I said when his mom answered the phone. It's about your son and my sister. When I finished explaining, including what I'd found in the cloud account, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. We're coming over, his dad finally said, his voice tight with anger. This isn't something to discuss over the phone. An hour later, we sat in my living room, going through the evidence together. His mother wept as she read the messages, while his father's face grew increasingly red with fury. She's lying about this baby, his mom said finally, wiping her eyes. It can't be his. I think so too, I agreed. But how do we prove it? His father stood up, pacing the room. We demand a paternity test. And we get a lawyer, immediately. She is not going to drag our son's name through the mud like this, or try to claim part of his estate with a fraudulent child. For the first time since the baby shower, I felt a glimmer of hope. I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. Over the next few weeks, we put together a plan. His parents' lawyer advised us to gather as much evidence as possible before confronting my sister. We needed to be prepared for her to deny everything and try to turn the family against me even more than she already had. I spoke to more of his friends, who confirmed he'd mentioned my sister's inappropriate behavior. One friend even recalled my fiancé being visibly uncomfortable at a family dinner where my sister had sat too close to him and kept touching his arm. Meanwhile, my family was falling apart. My parents were trying to play peacemaker, urging me to think of the baby and find a way to forgive my sister. Other relatives took sides. Some believed my sister's story of a tragic, star-crossed romance, while others were skeptical but afraid to speak up. My sister, for her part, was milking the situation for all it was worth. She posted tearful updates on social media about carrying a piece of him and how she hoped the baby would have his eyes, his smile. She painted herself as a grieving almost widow, while I became the bitter, jealous sister who couldn't accept reality. It made me sick to my stomach, but I held my tongue. The right moment to expose her hadn't come yet. That moment arrived sooner than I expected. 3 weeks after the baby shower, my parents organized a family healing dinner at their house. The idea was for my sister and me to talk things through with family support. I almost refused to go, but his parents encouraged me to attend. It might be the perfect opportunity, his mother said. Everyone will be there to witness her lies coming apart. So I went, armed with copies of the evidence and a recording app on my phone. His parents came too, which surprised my family, but they couldn't reasonably exclude them. Dinner was a tense affair. My sister played the part of the glowing mother-to-be, accepting congratulations and sympathy in equal measure. I stayed quiet, waiting for the right moment. It came when my mom brought out dessert, and my dad cleared his throat for what was clearly going to be a rehearsed speech about family unity. Before you start, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. There's something we all need to discuss. My sister shot me a warning look, which I ignored. I've been doing some research since the baby shower, I continued, pulling out my folder of evidence. And I've discovered some very interesting things about my fiancé and my sister's relationship. This isn't the time, my sister hissed, her hand protectively on her belly. Actually, it's exactly the time, my fiancé's father said, his voice cold, before the charade goes any further. I laid out everything we'd found, the harassing messages from my sister, my fiancé's clear rejections, the timeline proving he couldn't have been the father based on his business trip. "You're lying," my sister sputtered, her face flushing. "Those messages are fake." "They're from his cloud account," I said calmly. "The one we shared for wedding planning. The timestamps and account verification are all there." My parents looked shell-shocked. My mom kept shaking her head in small, jerky movements. "But the baby," she whispered. "If he's not the father, then who?" My sister's boyfriend, the one who couldn't make it to the baby shower, was the obvious answer. They'd been dating casually around the time of conception, but claiming the baby was my dead fiancé's would get her sympathy, attention, and potentially access to his estate. "This is ridiculous," my sister snapped, standing up abruptly. "I don't have to listen to this. Mom, Dad, are you really going to let them attack me like this? I'm pregnant." My dad looked torn, but my mom's face had changed. She was staring at my sister with new eyes. "Is it true?" she asked quietly. "Did you make up this story about the baby's father?" "Of course not," my sister protested, but her voice wavered. "Then you won't mind proving it," my fiancé's mother said firmly. "With a paternity test after the baby is born. We have DNA samples from our son that were preserved after his death." My sister's face went white. She hadn't expected that. "I don't have to prove anything to any of you," she said, grabbing her purse. "This is a witch hunt." As she stormed toward the door, I called after her. "We've already spoken to a lawyer. If you try to claim this baby is his to get access to his estate, we'll fight it. And we'll win." The door slammed behind her. What followed was chaos. My parents had 1,000 questions, most of which I couldn't answer. Why would she lie about something so huge? How long had she been planning this? Did she really expect to get away with it? In the days that followed, my sister went on a social media rampage, painting herself as the victim of a cruel campaign by a jealous sister who couldn't accept the truth. Some people believed her, but as more details leaked out, support for her version of events dwindled. His parents followed through on their promise and had their lawyer send a formal letter demanding a paternity test after the birth and warning against any attempts to make claims on their son's estate based on false paternity. The ultimate validation came from an unexpected source. My sister's ex-boyfriend, the casual one who hadn't attended the shower, reached out to me directly. "I just found out what's been going on," he said when we met at a local coffee shop. "I had no idea she was telling people the baby is your fiancé's." "So you know it's not true?" I asked. He nodded grimly. "We were together around the time she would have conceived. When she told me she was pregnant, I offered to step up, but she shut me down completely, said she didn't want me involved. Now I understand why. Would you be willing to make a statement about this?" I asked. "It might help clear my fiancé's name." He agreed without hesitation. "I'm done being manipulated by her. And if that baby is mine, I want to be in its life, whether she likes it or not." Armed with his statement, the text messages, and the timeline evidence, I finally felt ready to clear my fiancé's name publicly. I wrote a calm, factual post explaining the situation and shared it with our mutual friends and extended family. I didn't attack my sister personally or speculate about her motivations. I simply presented the evidence and let people draw their own conclusions. The response was overwhelming. Friends and family rallied around me and his parents. People who had initially believed my sister's story apologized for doubting me. Even my parents, after their initial shock wore off, stood firmly by my side. My sister, faced with mounting evidence and dwindling support, finally broke. She admitted in a private family meeting that the baby wasn't my fiancé's. She claimed she'd just gotten confused about the timing and had genuinely believed it might be his. Nobody bought it, but at least the lie was officially over. The aftermath wasn't neat or easy. Family gatherings became complicated. My relationship with my sister is probably broken beyond repair. But in a strange way, fighting for the truth helped me process my grief for my fiancé. Protecting his memory gave me purpose when I needed it most. His parents and I have remained close. They've been my rock through all of this, and I've been theirs. We talk about him often, sharing memories that keep him alive in our hearts. As for my sister, she gave birth to a healthy baby 3 months ago. DNA testing confirmed what we already knew. My fiancé was not the father. Her ex-boyfriend was, and he's now fighting for custody rights, which my sister is bitterly contesting. The hardest lesson in all of this has been learning that sometimes the people who should love you the most can hurt you the worst. but I've also learned that truth has a way of surfacing, even when buried under mountains of lies. I still miss my fiancé every day. I still wonder what our life together would have been like. But I know he would be proud of how I stood up for him, for us, and for the truth. And somehow, that knowledge makes the grief a little easier to bear. But my story doesn't end there. What happened next taught me even more about my sister's deception, my family's dynamics, and my own strength. In the weeks following the confrontation at my parents' house, things got much worse before they got better. My sister doubled down on her lies, creating an alternate reality where she was the victim of a cruel campaign by a jealous, grief-stricken sister who couldn't accept the truth. She took to social media with a vengeance, posting tearful videos about how her own family had abandoned her in her time of need. She even had the audacity to create a fundraiser for single mothers betrayed by their families, with herself as the prime example. "I just want what's best for my baby," she sobbed in one particularly dramatic video. My sister can't accept that the man we both loved chose to share something special with me too. Now she's trying to deny her own niece or nephew their rightful inheritance and connection to their father. The comments were filled with supportive messages from people who didn't know the full story, condemning me and my fiancé's parents for our cruelty toward a pregnant woman. It made my blood boil, but I refused to engage in a public social media war. That wasn't my style, and it would only feed into her narrative of me being unstable and vindictive. Instead, I focused on building an airtight case, with the help of his parents and their lawyer. I provided the text message screenshots, showing my sister's harassment and my fiancé's clear rejection of her advances. His best friend submitted a written statement about conversations where my fiancé had expressed discomfort about my sister's behavior. My sister's ex-boyfriend confirmed their relationship during the conception window and his belief that he was the father. None of this stopped my sister from continuing her performance. She showed up unannounced at my fiancé's parents' house one day, heavily pregnant and weeping, begging them to accept their grandchild. When they calmly but firmly asked her to leave, she screamed at them loudly enough for the neighbors to hear, calling them horrible people who were denying their own flesh and blood. My fiancé's father recorded the entire incident, which turned out to be crucial later. Meanwhile, my parents were caught in the middle of a nightmare. My mom vacillated between supporting me and trying to maintain some relationship with my sister. My dad, unable to handle the conflict, withdrew almost completely, spending most of his time in his workshop and refusing to discuss the situation. "I don't understand why she would do this," my mom said during one of our conversations. What could she possibly gain? It was a question I'd been asking myself too. The answer started to become clearer when I received a call from a lawyer representing my fiancé's former employer. "We've been contacted by someone claiming to be carrying your late fiancé's child," the lawyer explained. "She's asking about survivor benefits and insurance payouts." I felt sick to my stomach. "Let me guess. My sister?" "Yes," the lawyer confirmed. "I wanted to verify with you before proceeding. Your fiancé's parents suggested I speak with you directly." I explained the situation, including the evidence we'd collected proving her claims were false. The lawyer was sympathetic but professional. "We'll require a paternity test before even considering any claims," she assured me. "But given what you've told me, it sounds like this might be attempted fraud." That word, fraud, struck me like a thunderbolt. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. My sister was actively trying to defraud companies, and potentially the estate for financial gain. When I shared this development with his parents, they were furious, but not surprised. Their lawyer confirmed my suspicions. My sister was likely hoping to access death benefits, insurance payouts, and possibly even claim part of his estate on behalf of his child. "We need to document every attempt she makes," the lawyer advised. "This goes beyond family drama. She's potentially committing fraud, which is a criminal offense." Armed with this new perspective, we began tracking my sister's actions more carefully. We discovered she had also contacted his life insurance company, his retirement account administrator, and even a small investment portfolio he had maintained. The most shocking discovery came when I was sorting through some of his old papers and found a copy of his will. We had started the process of estate planning shortly after getting engaged, but I hadn't been able to face finalizing these arrangements after his death. The will was clear. In the event of his death, everything would go to me, with specific bequests to his parents and a few close friends. There was a standard clause about children born or adopted after the will's creation, being entitled to a share according to state law, which is likely what my sister was counting on. I brought the will to his parents and their lawyer. "She must know about this clause," I said. That's why she's so desperate to prove the baby is his. The lawyer nodded grimly. And why she's fighting so hard against a paternity test? Once the baby is born and tested, her whole scheme falls apart. We were in a holding pattern until the birth, gathering evidence but unable to take definitive action. My sister continued her campaign, growing more desperate as her due date approached. She even showed up at my workplace one day, making a scene in the library where I couldn't escape. "How can you do this to me?" she cried loudly, drawing stares from patrons and colleagues. "How can you deny your own niece or nephew? He would hate what you're doing." My supervisor, who knew about the situation, quickly intervened, escorting my sister out and threatening to call security if she returned. I was shaking with anger and humiliation, but also more determined than ever to see this through. "Don't worry," my supervisor said kindly as she brought me a cup of tea in the break room. "We've got your back here. She won't pull that again." Support came from unexpected places. A cousin who had initially believed my sister approached me at a family gathering, looking deeply uncomfortable. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I believed her at first, but the things she's been saying and doing, they don't add up. And I remembered something." She told me about a conversation with my sister months earlier, before the baby shower. My sister had asked detailed questions about how inheritance worked when someone died, without specifically providing for children born after a will was created. "I thought it was just random curiosity at the time," my cousin said. "But now," I thanked her for coming forward and added this information to our growing file of evidence. The most difficult part was watching some family members continue to support my sister, despite mounting evidence of her deception. An aunt in particular took my sister's side vehemently, helping her organize a baby shower redo for friends who really care. I tried not to let it bother me, focusing instead on the support I did have. His parents, my parents, who were finally seeing the truth, close friends who never doubted me, and colleagues who had my back. The turning point came when my sister went into labor 3 weeks before her due date. She had the audacity to call me from the hospital. "I know we've had our differences," she said, her voice weak and theatrical, "but I want you here. What if something happens to me? Don't you want to meet your niece or nephew?" I declined firmly, but politely. "I wish you a safe delivery, but I think it's best if I'm not there." She burst into tears, calling me heartless, and saying she would never forgive me for abandoning her in her hour of need. I ended the call feeling drained, but certain I had made the right decision. My sister gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She immediately posted photos online with a caption that made my blood boil. "She has her daddy's eyes. He's watching over us. I can feel it." The comments were filled with congratulations and pointed remarks about how the baby looked just like him. It was infuriating, but the end was finally in sight. His parents' lawyer filed a formal petition for a paternity test, citing the multiple claims my sister had made to financial institutions and the estate. The court date was set for 2 weeks after the birth, giving my sister time to recover, but not enough time to keep dodging the inevitable. As the date approached, my sister made one last desperate attempt to maintain her lie. She called his parents, sobbing that she was afraid of the test results. "Not because he's not the father," she quickly clarified, "but because what if the test is wrong? What if they mix up the samples? I just want to work this out privately, as a family." His father was unmoved. "The test will happen as scheduled," he said firmly. "If you're so certain, you have nothing to worry about." The day of the court hearing arrived. My sister showed up, looking pale but defiant, the baby dressed in an outfit I recognized as one his mother had bought for us when we first got engaged, saying she hoped we'd use it for our future child someday. It was a calculated insult, but we didn't take the bait. The judge was no nonsense and clearly familiar with similar cases. She ordered the paternity test and set a follow-up date to review the results. "In the meantime," she added, looking directly at my sister, "the respondent is ordered to cease making any claims regarding paternity to financial institutions, on social media or elsewhere, until the results are confirmed." My sister looked like she wanted to object but stayed silent. As we left the courtroom, she brushed past me, whispering, "This isn't over." She was right about that, but not in the way she intended. The paternity test results came back exactly as we expected. My fiancé was not the father of her baby. The DNA showed 0 probability of paternity. At the follow-up hearing, my sister was visibly shaken. Her entire story was crumbling, and she knew it. The judge was stern as she reviewed the results. The test conclusively excludes the deceased as the biological father of the child, she stated. Given the respondent's multiple claims to financial institutions and public statements regarding paternity, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for review of potential fraud charges. My sister broke down, wailing that there must be a mistake, that the test was wrong, that someone had tampered with the samples. The judge was unmoved. The court will also grant the petitioner's request for a restraining order, she continued. The respondent is to cease all contact with the petitioners and is prohibited from making any further claims regarding paternity. Outside the courtroom, my sister's ex-boyfriend was waiting. He had attended the hearing to learn the results, his face a mix of emotions when the judge confirmed what he had suspected all along. The baby was his. I'm filing for custody, he told her flatly. Partial at first, but given everything that's happened, I think I have a strong case for full custody. You need help. My sister's face contorted with rage. You'll never take my baby, she hissed. Never. But her threats were empty. The truth was out, documented by the court, and her scheme had failed completely. In the days that followed, the full impact of the court ruling rippled through our family and social circle. My sister's social media supporters turned on her as the truth spread. Her fundraiser was shut down and reported for fraud. Family members who had supported her withdrew in embarrassment and shock. My parents were devastated by the final confirmation of their daughter's deception. My mom called me in tears. I don't know where we went wrong with her, she sobbed. How could she do this? To you, to us, to everyone? I didn't have an answer. I'm not sure there is one that makes sense to normal, ethical people. The district attorney's office did review the case and eventually charged my sister with attempted fraud based on her false claims to financial institutions. She accepted a plea deal that included probation, mandatory counseling, and restitution for legal expenses incurred by his parents and the companies she had contacted. Her ex-boyfriend followed through on his custody filing. After evaluating the evidence of my sister's pattern of deception and manipulative behavior, the family court granted him temporary primary custody, with my sister having supervised visitation rights. Throughout all of this, I maintained my distance. I had said what needed to be said, the truth had been established, and now I needed to focus on healing. His parents felt the same way. We had fought for his memory and won. Now it was time to honor that memory by living well. We established a small memorial scholarship in his name at his alma mater, funded by a portion of his life insurance policy that I insisted on sharing with his parents. Every year it helps a student pursuing the career he loved so much. It feels right, like something he would have wanted. My sister eventually reached out to me with what she claimed was an apology, but it rang hollow, filled with excuses and self-pity rather than genuine remorse. I didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, can't and shouldn't be rebuilt. The rest of the family has slowly begun to heal. My parents eventually reconciled with the reality of who my sister is and have set necessary boundaries with her. Other relatives have done the same. No one excuses or enables her behavior anymore. As for me, I've found a strange kind of peace. Clearing my fiancé's name and protecting his legacy helped me process my grief in ways I never expected. I still visit his grave regularly, but now I bring good news instead of tears, telling him about the scholarship recipients, about his parents, about the beautiful spring flowers blooming nearby. The last piece of this journey came 6 months after the court ruling, when the full extent of my sister's deception was finally revealed in a way none of us expected. I was having dinner with his parents, something that had become a monthly tradition for us. We'd grown close through our shared grief and the battle to protect his memory, forming a family bond that transcended the legal relationship we would have had if he had lived. We got a strange call today, his mother said, setting down her fork, from a woman who said she used to work with your sister. I raised an eyebrow. What did she want? To apologize, apparently, his father said. She said she'd only recently learned about everything that happened, and she felt guilty for her part in it. The woman had agreed to meet with his parents the next day, and they asked if I wanted to join them. Though hesitant to reopen wounds that were finally starting to heal, my curiosity won out. The meeting took place at a quiet cafe downtown. The woman, who introduced herself as my sister's former coworker, looked nervous but determined. I worked with your sister for about 2 years, she began. We weren't exactly friends, but we were friendly. She talked about her family sometimes, especially you, she said, looking at me. When did you stop working together? I asked. About a month before your fiancé passed away, she replied, and I felt a chill run down my spine. What she revealed next explained so much. Apparently, my sister had been fixated on my relationship for years, constantly comparing her own failed romances to my perfect partnership. But things took a darker turn after my engagement. She became obsessed, the woman explained. She would talk about how unfair it was that you had everything while she struggled. She convinced herself that your fiancé was the solution to all her problems, that if she had him instead, her life would be better. According to this woman, my sister had created an elaborate fantasy about my fiancé being secretly in love with her. She talked about it constantly at work, claiming they had meaningful interactions that he hid from me. She interpreted basic politeness as hidden signals of affection. None of us took it too seriously at first, she admitted. People say weird things sometimes, but then she started talking about accidentally running into him places, waiting outside his office, sending him messages. The woman had tried to reason with my sister, suggesting she might be crossing boundaries, but my sister dismissed her concerns. After the woman left for a new job, she lost touch with my sister and heard about my fiancé's death through mutual acquaintances. I had no idea about the baby or the claim she made until last month, she said. A former colleague told me about the court case. I was horrified. I keep thinking if I had said something back then, maybe this whole nightmare could have been avoided. His parents and I exchanged glances. This wasn't just a case of opportunistic lying after his death. My sister had been planning something, fantasizing about him, long before the accident. There's one more thing, the woman said, opening her purse. She once showed me this, bragging about her special connection with him. I took a photo of it because it seemed so strange and concerning. I thought you should have it. She handed over her phone, showing us a picture of a small notebook page. It contained what appeared to be a detailed plan, written in my sister's unmistakable handwriting. Operation Future. 1. Make him see me as more than his fiancé's sister. 2. Create opportunities for alone time. 3. Build meaningful connection. 4. Make him question his relationship. 5. Be there when they inevitably break up. I felt physically ill reading it. This wasn't just random jealousy. This was calculated, premeditated. My sister had been actively plotting to break up my relationship. May I send this to my phone? I asked. The woman nodded, looking relieved to have unburdened herself. After she left, the three of us sat in stunned silence. I knew she was lying about the baby, his mother finally said. But this is something else entirely. She was stalking him. His father reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry. No wonder he seemed uncomfortable around her those last few months. This new information cast everything in an even darker light. The harassment my fiancé had experienced wasn't just inappropriate attraction. It was part of a deliberate campaign to destroy our relationship. And when he died, my sister saw an opportunity to rewrite the narrative entirely, casting herself as his secret love and the mother of his child. I debated what to do with this new information. Part of me wanted to confront my sister, to demand answers about her operation. Part of me wanted to share it with my parents, to finally make them understand the full extent of her manipulation. In the end, I decided to give the information to the lawyer handling the ongoing custody case between my sister and her ex-boyfriend. Her disturbing obsession and elaborate deception spoke to deeper issues that might be relevant to determining what was best for the child. The impact was significant. Combined with the pattern of fraud and manipulation already established, this evidence of long-term delusional behavior raised serious concerns about my sister's mental stability and fitness as a primary caregiver. The court ordered a psychological evaluation, which revealed concerning patterns of narcissistic behavior and an unhealthy fixation on crafting false narratives. Her ex-boyfriend was granted full custody, with my sister allowed supervised visitation only after completing a court-mandated therapy program. My parents were devastated when they learned the full truth. My mother called me, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. We failed you, she kept saying. All those years, we didn't see what was happening. We didn't protect you. It was a painful conversation, but also healing in ways I hadn't expected. For the first time, my parents fully acknowledged the pattern of favoritism and enabling that had allowed my sister's behavior to escalate to this point. They committed to family therapy to understand how things had gone so wrong and how to build healthier relationships moving forward. My sister, faced with the complete collapse of her fabricated reality and the loss of custody, finally agreed to enter an intensive therapy program. Whether this was genuine recognition of her need for help or simply another manipulation to improve her position with the court, I couldn't say. I maintained my distance, protecting my hard-won peace. The months that followed were surprisingly quiet. My sister, focused on her therapy and supervised visitation, no longer had the energy or opportunity to create drama. My parents, humbled by their recognition of their own role in enabling her, became more thoughtful and respectful of boundaries. I continued my monthly dinners with his parents, our shared history of loss and triumph, creating a bond that felt like true family. We talked about him freely, sharing memories both painful and sweet. The scholarship in his name awarded its first recipient, a promising young student who reminded us all of him in the best ways. And I began to date again, cautiously at first. A colleague introduced me to a kind, patient man who understood that grief doesn't follow a tidy timeline. He never rushed me or competed with my memories. Instead, he simply offered companionship and genuine care as I continued healing. Life settled into a new normal. Not perfect, but peaceful. The truth had prevailed, justice had been served, and I was finally free to focus on building a future rather than fighting the past. Looking back on everything now, I can see how my sister's desperate scheme unwittingly gave me something valuable: the knowledge of my own strength. In standing up for the truth, and refusing to be manipulated or silenced, I discovered reserves of courage and resilience I never knew I possessed. My fiancé would be proud, I think, not just of how I protected his memory, but of how I've continued living, finding joy again despite the pain. That feels like the greatest victory of all. Update. It's been just over 2 years since everything happened, and I wanted to share how things have turned out for everyone involved. First, the biggest news in my life. 6 months ago, I got engaged again. It happened on a quiet evening at home. No grand gestures or elaborate plans. Just a sincere question and my tearful yes. My new fiancé understands that part of my heart will always belong to the man I lost, and he respects that completely. We're planning a small wedding next spring, with his parents serving as honorary family members for me. Speaking of his parents, they've remained a constant, loving presence in my life. They were the first people I told about my engagement, nervous about how they might feel. They responded with genuine joy and told me their son would want nothing more than my happiness. His mother has even offered to help with wedding planning, a gesture that moved me to tears. The scholarship we established in his memory is thriving. We've now helped 3 students pursue their education and career dreams. Reading their thank you letters and seeing their progress reports brings all of us a sense of peace, knowing that something beautiful continues to grow from our loss. As for my sister, the last 2 years have brought significant changes. The court-mandated therapy apparently revealed deeper issues than anyone had suspected. She was diagnosed with several psychological conditions that helped explain, though not excuse, her manipulative behavior patterns. She's still in intensive treatment and, according to my parents, is finally doing the hard work of confronting her issues. The custody arrangement has remained largely unchanged. Her ex-boyfriend has primary custody of their daughter, who's now a lively toddler. My sister has progressed to unsupervised visitation 1 weekend a month, with the possibility of expanded access if she continues her treatment and demonstrates stability. My relationship with my parents has evolved in ways I never expected. After initially acknowledging their role in enabling my sister's behavior, they've committed fully to family therapy and personal growth. My mother especially has shown remarkable insight and remorse, working hard to rebuild our relationship on healthier terms. We now have boundaries that are respected and a level of honest communication we never had before. I've maintained my distance from my sister, though I have seen her twice at family gatherings. Both encounters were civil but brief. She seemed subdued, less grandiose, perhaps finally understanding the consequences of her actions. She attempted an apology during our last interaction, more genuine than her previous efforts, but still falling short of taking full responsibility. I acknowledged it politely, but made no promises about rebuilding our relationship. Some damage can't be undone, and I'm at peace with that understanding. The emotional scars from everything that happened will always be part of me, but they no longer define my daily life. The nightmares have stopped. The random bursts of anger and grief have faded to occasional melancholy. I've learned that healing isn't about forgetting or pretending the pain never existed. It's about integrating it into your life story and continuing forward. Perhaps the most unexpected outcome has been my career change. My experience led me to start volunteering with a support group for people dealing with family estrangement and betrayal. What began as a way to process my own trauma evolved into a passion for helping others navigate similar situations. I've since completed training as a counselor and now work part-time at a community mental health center, specializing in family trauma and grief support. My clients often ask how I managed to move forward after such a profound betrayal. I tell them the truth. It wasn't one big decision, but thousands of small ones. The choice to get out of bed each morning. The choice to seek help when I needed it. The choice to fight for the truth, even when it would have been easier to stay silent. The choice to remain open to joy and love, despite the risk of further pain. If there's any wisdom I've gained from this experience, it's that resilience isn't about being unbreakable. It's about learning how to gather the pieces when you do break, examining them carefully, and rebuilding yourself stronger at the fracture points. It's about recognizing that even in your most vulnerable moments, you have the capacity for courage, dignity, and eventually, healing. To anyone reading this who might be facing their own family betrayal or loss, please know that the darkness doesn't last forever. The path forward may not be clear right now, but it exists. Trust in your own strength, even when you can't feel it. Lean on the people who genuinely support you. And remember that your story doesn't end with the painful chapter you're currently living through. Mine certainly didn't. And for that, I am profoundly grateful. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. It's meant more than you can know. Anyway, thank you for watching.